Hi everyone, it's Laura here for Studio Katia, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how to create a fun Halloween scene with the Monster Bash stamp set. I started off by die cutting the elements that I needed to build my scene. I die cut some light blue cardstock using this rectangle die from the Dotted Patterns Set 3 dies by Studio Katia. And then I combined that die with the simple dotted borders dies to die cut two panels out of some light gray cardstock. One is curved and one has a straight edge. And then I also have a small moon up there that I die cut out of some yellow cardstock. And for that I used the sky set border dies. I then started creating my night sky out of this light blue cardstock panel, and I started from some colored cardstock because this would make my ink blending a little bit faster. I am using Blueprint Sketch and then I'll come in with black soot on the very edges to darken them up. I was measuring where I wanted my moon to go so that I could blend my inks circularly from there to create kind of a halo effect. And then once I was done with the blueprint sketch, as I said, I went in with my black soot just on the very edges to make this look like a really nice and black night sky. I am going back and forth with my inks, trying to get a smooth blend. And then I also used some Distress Oxides in Salty Ocean in the light center that I left empty at this stage to help me blend out the blueprint sketch and the black soot in that area. The Salty Ocean is pretty much the same color of the cardstock that I was using today, so it was perfect to help me blend the Distress Oxides that I already had there without darkening the area where I want the moon too much. To add some clouds to my night sky, I used the Sky Set Borders dies. I used the cloud border die and I die cut some white cardstock, and I'm using that as a stencil, as I said, to blend some white pigment ink. I am trying to get a smooth blend, but also make sure that the clouds are visible enough on my sky, and I'm going to move the stencil all over the sky so that I get clouds everywhere. I'm trying to change the inclination a little bit so that it doesn't look like the pattern is repeated exactly, but also in the end, most of the sky will be covered, so you will just get the basic impression of the presence of clouds, and we don't have to overthink it too much at this stage. There is no night sky without some stars, for me at least, so I used my Gansai Tambi starry colors in the colors yellow gold and light gold, and I created some droplets which will be the stars on my sky. And then I moved on to the rest of my landscape elements, which are these two die cuts that I die cut, as I said, out of some light gray cardstock, and that I'm blending with Distress Oxide in black soot to create again some shading and dimension. And because this is a spooky, whimsical Halloween scene, even if I don't get the perfect blend, it's still okay, and it actually adds, I think, in the end to the feel of the whole card. Once my background was done, I could move on and start working on the images, and for this card I used the Monster Bash stamp set by Studio Katia, and then later on I will also use the houses from the Whimsical Town stamp set, also by Studio Katia, which is really nice. It has a really unique style and I love that stamp set very much. I stamped the images on Spectrum Noir watercolor cardstock using some scrapbook.com premium hybrid black ink, and I am now coloring them with my Spectrum Noir aqua markers. These are some new to me markers which are water-based, as the name suggests, and this is why I decided to work on watercolor cardstock, and that's also why I used my hybrid ink, which works both with water-based media and with alcohol-based media. The color palette that I chose to color in these monsters is the classic green, orange, and purple Halloween palette. The background and the rest of the images will be pretty muted because I wanted these images to really stand out, and this is why instead for those I'm using some nice and bright colors. I'm using 1 or 2 markers per image depending on what I'm coloring exactly. So for the purple, because it was pretty dark and it was moving really nicely, I used just 1 marker. But for the green, because I wanted some different type of color variation, I used 2 markers. And then for the blending, I'm using a water brush which is filled with water. If I felt I was getting too splotchy a result, or if I just wanted a bit more coverage, I went in with a second layer of color, and then I continued coloring the rest of these fun little monsters. Also, if I felt in certain cases that my colors were not blending very much, what I would do is I would scribble the marker on my glass mat. Any sleek surface would work, and then I would pick it up with my paintbrush and then use that to blend my colors a little bit more easily. And I also used this technique when I colored in the houses, which will happen very shortly at this point. And that also helped me mix the colors with each other, because you can basically scribble your markers on your glass mat or again on any sleek surface and then mix them together there and use that as a palette. This is the last monster that I colored, and then I, off camera, went ahead and stamped the houses in the Whimsical Town stamp set and colored them with some dark gray markers. These are cool grays, and as I said, I didn't want the houses to steal away too much attention from the monsters, so they are basically colored in with these gray markers, and I just used my orange, purple, and green markers to color in some of the details on the houses, but in order to mute them down, I kind of mixed them with the gray markers that I had down on the palette. You can kind of see it right now. I tried to get some color variation, and I think at this point you kind of grasped the method that I used to color in these houses. The only thing that I wanted to add is that I wasn't very careful in getting the best blend for them and in staying in the lines, because I wanted the general feel of the card to be loose and whimsical and fun, so I could get away with not being 100% precise in the coloring of these images. I think at this point we can skip the rest of the coloring, and once I was done with coloring all the images, I also die cut them with the coordinating dies. And then I could actually start assembling my scene. I started by adhering the hill and the road to my sky panel, and I'm using my Studio Katia glue for that. I have mentioned it a few times, I do prefer liquid adhesive when adhering elements to my cards and building scenes, because I have a little bit of time while the glue is drying out to actually move things in place and get the exact positioning that I want. I also like to play around with my scene elements and lay them down on my card before adhering them in place, and this is what I did off camera. I laid down all the houses and the monsters, and then once I found a configuration that I thought was pleasing, I went ahead and used again my Studio Katia glue to adhere them all. And I built my little scene with these fun monsters. At this point, most of the job is done and we just need a few more extra steps to finish off this card. The first was to adhere the scene to an A2 rectangle that I die cut out of some black cardstock with the Studio Katia Darling Ribbon and Frames dies. I also decided to add some drop shadows to the monsters on the foreground to ground them and make them look like they're actually standing on the road. For the sentiment, I used one of the greetings in the Monster Bash stamp set, and I heat embossed it with white embossing powder over some black cardstock. I used my guillotine trimmer to trim a little banner and my corner chomper to round the corners at the top. And then I adhered it behind the heel. I don't know, it made me think about a road sign or something like that. I thought that position was really nice for a sentiment with this shape. And then, as always, I had to add a little bit of shimmer with my Spectrum Noir clear overlay pen, and also a few details with my Sakura Jelly Roll pen. This one is in size number 8. And the reason why I'm adding all these finishing touches to the monsters only is to make sure that the attention of the viewer is really drawn towards the monsters, because I want them to be the stars of the card today. A last touch with glossy accents over the eyes of all the monsters, as well as the antennas and the horns, depending on which bodily feature these monsters have. And then, because I felt that the design was a little bit unbalanced there on the bottom left corner, I decided to color and die cut this little monster slime image, I guess it is, from the Monster Bash stamp set, also by Studio Katia, and I adhered that in that area so that the design was nice and balanced. And here you can see the final result. I think this card is really fun with these adorable monsters, and if you switched up the sentiment, it would also work great, for example, for a birthday card for a boy. So basically you can adapt it to the occasion you need it for. And that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I inspired you to create with the Studio Katia Monster Bash and Whimsical Town stamp sets. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiration. Thank you all so much for stopping by, and have a great day.